America has always been a two-party system. But let's be real, the Democratic Party does not feel like a party at all anymore. It feels like a poorly curated Spotify playlist. One where the algorithm is trying way too hard to keep everyone happy. You know the kind. Starts off strong, some classic Motown, a little Aretha, then boom, some hyper pop song from TikTok. Then it's folk music about the working class. Then it's 90 seconds of angry spoken word poetry about gentrification. And before you can even skip the track, there's an EDM drop blasting in your ears. It's chaotic, it's exhausting, and it doesn't actually keep anyone happy. That's the Democratic Party right now. For decades, it was the party for working people, unions, and economic justice. Sure, it had its flaws, some pretty big ones, but at least it had an identity. Now, it's just the everything bagel of politics, trying to cater to every single sub-niche, micro-demographic, every interest group, until what's left isn't something flavorful or satisfying, but a bagel so overloaded with toppings that it just tastes burnt. Let's take a look at the recipe. You've got the core ingredients, the traditional Democratic base, minority voters, labor unions, and progressive intellectuals. But over time, new flavors have been added. Feminists, environmentalists, LGBTQ plus activists, immigrants, tech elites, Hollywood progressives, Silicon Valley disruptors, suburban moderates. We have socialists and anarchists, Wall Street neoliberals, defund the police abolitionists, and fund the police pragmatists, each group getting a few policy crumbs to stay at the table. And what's the result? A political identity that's more a collection of bullet points than a movement. No coherent vision, just vibes. Let's not pretend the Republicans don't have their own problems. Their bagel is moldy as hell, crusted over with reactionary nonsense. But at least they know what they're serving. The GOP's message is simple. We're the anti-woke, anti-immigrant, pro-capitalist party of cultural dominance. It's a terrible vision, but at least it's a vision. Meanwhile, Democrats are in a constant branding crisis. Are they the party of labor or the party of coastal elites? Are they about radical change or incremental progress? Are they the home of Bernie Sanders or the home of JP Morgan Chase? They tell workers that they're on their side while letting corporations write the rules. They champion minority rights, but abandon minority communities once the election's over. They fundraise off the fear of Republican takeovers, but refuse to codify basic protections when they have power. And worst of all, their biggest accomplishment? It's often just not being the other guy. Think about it. Biden's entire campaign was built on one thing. He's not Trump. That's it. No sweeping policy vision, no ambitious narrative about America's future. Just, look man, I'm normal. I don't tweet weird shit at 2 a.m. And I care about democracy. And sure, that worked once. But what happens when voters start asking, okay, but what are your actual policies? Here's the hard truth. When you're trying to be everything, you become nothing. The working class, they see a party that used to fight for them, now more concerned with chasing corporate donors. Black and Latino voters, they hear all the speeches about racial justice, but see little material change. Young voters, they get endless lectures about civic duty, but no movement on climate change, student debt, or housing reform. And rural America, they feel ignored entirely. You see, when Democrats lose elections, they blame it on disinformation, apathy, bad messaging. But maybe the problem isn't how they're selling the product. maybe the problem is the product itself. Imagine if instead of trying to be the party of everyone, they focused on being the party of most people. Imagine if instead of niche messaging silos, they rallied around a core vision, a real economic plan, a real labor movement, a real fight against corporate power, a real plan for systemic racial and economic justice. But right now, the Democrats aren't fighting the GOP. They're fighting themselves. And in the end, what's worse? A party that serves up a moldy, rotten bagel, or a party that tries so hard to please everyone that they forget how to make a decent one at all.